Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where Barbenheimer continues its path of box office dominance, and other movies just try to hold on, with varying results, although there are a few winners in this amazing Hollywood storm. But let's talk about the big winners, and that's, of course, Barbie and Oppie. What are they up to this week? Well, Barbie, in addition to being the first billion-dollar club entry directed solely by a woman, is now the most successful film domestically ever directed by a woman in any capacity. Even if she partnered up with somebody else, she didn't make as much money as Greta Gerwig for Barbie, domestically. Now, worldwide, at $1.18 billion, Barbie is the most successful live-action movie ever. These are some crazy asterisks. But hey, man, a record is a record broken. So any live-action film directed by a woman in any capacity cannot outdo Barbie. So the reason I had to specify live-action is because Frozen and Frozen 2 are still way out ahead. And I don't think Barbie's going to catch up to that. But still, it's great. You know, these two movies march on. Don't worry, Oppenheimer's going to get its flowers momentarily. Barbie, the Oppenheimer fans are so sensitive. All right, so anyway, I mean, Barbie's a mega hit. All right, so, although this next one's going to hurt if you're an Oppenheimer fan. So Barbie is also going to surpass The Dark Knight this coming week as Warner Brothers' most successful film domestically of all time. That's amazing. Wow. I mean, that's incredible. Worldwide for Warner Brothers, Barbie is currently behind only one movie, and it ain't a Batman movie. It's only the final Harry Potter movie that's done better. And I don't know if Barbie's going to be able to catch that one either. But yikes! Warner Brothers is definitely going to make another Barbie movie, even if it's just the Ken spinoff. And you know, the optics of the Barbie sequel being about Ken maybe aren't that great, but maybe some other Barbies can join him. But Barbie's story is kind of done. And I think that Ken is not done, clearly, and Ken is such a big fan favorite. I think that, you know, I personally feel that's the path forward for the franchise. They're just going to have to find a way to make it work. And they're going to try, because this is just too much money. Not only overall, but as you can see for Warner Brothers specifically. So what about the career boosts? Whenever a movie does this well, everybody's supposed to level up career-wise, although the strikes are making it a little difficult. But the strikes are a necessary evil. This must happen. But let's just see, you know, so everybody's kind of on pause, so I thought it would be fun this week to kind of see where everybody is and where they might potentially be going. And don't worry, we're going to do Oppenheimer too. Now, Margot Robbie's Lucky Chap Entertainment already has a first-look deal with Warner Brothers. That's how they got Barbie. And Margot Robbie is producing Saltburn, coming out later this year from Emerald Fennell. They teamed up before on Promising Young Woman. Remember that movie? Loved it. That had a little controversy where one critic was a jerk and said Margot Robbie should have played the lead role there. I will not take this Carey Mulligan slander, thank you very much. Carey Mulligan is in Maestro from Netflix, which is a major Oscar contender this year as well. But anyway, Saltburn is for MGM, so I guess Warner Brothers passed on it. First look deals means that Warner Brothers gets the right of first refusal to any project that Margot Robbie wants to produce. So anyway, there's Oscar buzz for Saltburn as well as Barbie. So Margot Robbie is competing with herself. Weird. Although she divulged, she's told it a couple of times, but the headline made some really made the rounds these past few days, that Margot Robbie was not Margot Robbie's first choice to play Barbie. She wanted Gal Gadot to do it, which I think would have been absolutely awful, because again, I don't think Gal Gadot is a good enough actress. I think she does have that appealing factor that Margot Robbie referenced, but thankfully Greta Gerwig said, I'm writing Barbie for you, Margot, so you got to do it. Another reason that Greta Gerwig is a boss. Lucky Chap has a couple of films in development, which are interesting. Margot Robbie wants to produce a Tank Girl reboot. That's in development, not a lot of movement on it, but she has the rights. And then also, she's behind Big Thunder Mountain Railroad for Disney, where she has signed the Hawkeye female directing duo, Bert and Bertie. Now, you might be noticing a pattern here, and that's that, sure enough, Lucky Chap focuses on female-centric entertainment, talent in front of and behind the camera. And look out, Reese Witherspoon. That was supposed to be Reese Witherspoon's whole modus operandi. And it looks like Margot Robbie is coming in there and stealing her Pink Thunder. Reese Witherspoon, though, has made a ton of money doing this already. So Reese Witherspoon's fine. You don't have to cry for Reese Witherspoon. But it is interesting to see kind of a similar business model and similar level of success to a degree. And at one point, Reese Witherspoon was the pink dynamo at the box office, interestingly enough. Maybe Reese Witherspoon and Margot Robbie should do some sort of crossover. Although I don't think Reese Witherspoon's career is good enough right now, I'm sorry to say, for Margot Robbie to risk it. All right, as for Margot Robbie herself, what is she doing? Well, the only project she has coming up is that she's reteaming with Ryan Gosling. I don't know if this is a good idea. For Warner Brothers, again, for that Ocean's 11 prequel set in Monte Carlo in the 1960s. This was supposed to start filming at the end of June, but, Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling were busy promoting Barbie with that 12-day extension on the SAG contract, so that took them into early July, and then SAG went on strike. So the Ocean's 11 Monte Carlo prequel, which actually sounds pretty good when you think about it, didn't get to start filming. So who knows how long it'll take. And maybe, would you pull the plug on that now? I'd be nervous to mess up. I don't know if I would want to reteam Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, although maybe that's your de facto Barbie sequel right there. Jay Roach is directing, which I have mixed feelings about. Let's see. I don't know. Would you continue with that film? Or did the SAG strike maybe give them an out? All right, meanwhile, Ryan Gosling, that Kennergy's working for him, he did wrap filming on a project, and that's a 1980s set, all the period pieces for Ryan Gosling, a 1980s action thriller, which is a film adaptation of the TV show from that time period, The Fall Guy. Gosling takes over the lead role, playing a stuntman working on a new movie where the star goes missing. Pretty good cast. This sounds a little bit like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, quite frankly, which I enjoyed, most of it. And then it's directed by David Leitch, who, of course, I think has kind of a little bit of a spotty track record, but that's pretty darn good for Ryan Gosling. Now, what about Greta Gerwig? The only deal Greta Gerwig currently has is that Netflix Narnia one. Oh, I'm sure that seemed like a really great idea at the time. But she's attached to not just one, but 2 movies in that deal. I'm sure she wishes she hadn't signed that. She blinked, and I don't blame her. Who has been Greta Gerwig up until now? And Narnia is a big deal. So before Barbie came out, because she wasn't sure which way it was going to go, she signed the deal. She got it into place. She was talking it up before Barbie opened, using that publicity to help with the Netflix Narnia situation. But now she's booked for a very long time. What studio is going to want to get a deal with Greta Gerwig when she won't be available for so long? She's not going to be able to get back into the box office arena anytime soon for a major studio. And I find that very disappointing. I don't know why these female directors can't do the second round. We've had a couple break through with an initial round, but they're really having trouble with the follow-up. And then, of course, Greta Gerwig, speaking of problems headed her way, she is a co-writer on Disney's live-action Snow White, which is already having horrible PR situations. Some of it toxic, just the toxic space that we're in right now, but some of it its own fault. I choose to believe that everything good in the movie was from Greta Gerwig and everything bad was from the other screenwriter. If I were Greta Gerwig's manager, that's how I'd be spinning it. But yikes, I think that's going to undo some of the goodwill that Barbie has built up for her. Because I do feel, from what we've seen so far, that Snow White might be indefensible. And there's your Gal Gadot. All right, so anyway, now back to Barbie itself. Rumor has it that Barbie will be hitting digital the first Tuesday of September, which gives the movie 3 more weekends exclusively in theaters, including Labor Day weekend, although that's not historically a big movie-going weekend, although Shang-Chi found a lot of success there, and I think Equalizer 3 is going to do well in that space too. So we'll see. And also Craven picked that for next year when it got moved because of the strikes. So will that give Barbie enough time to surpass Super Mario Bros. To become the biggest movie of 2023? Well, with no big markets left for the film to open in, it just hit 2 of its biggest markets this past weekend, and it did okay. It did well for those markets, but it didn't add substantially to its bottom line. So I think it's possible to surpass Super Mario Bros., but it's going to be a squeaker. We'll see. As for Oppenheimer, all right, it just entered the bottom half of my overall projection with $649 million worldwide to date. At this point, I said it could go maybe to 8. I think it's going to finish with a 7 in front of it, which would put it on par with Inception, a much more action-oriented film with a much bigger star, Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio. Oppenheimer is also now one of the top 10 highest-grossing R-rated films of all time domestically, but that's still incredible. And with $75.8 million from IMAX alone, that makes it one of the most successful IMAX films ever released in IMAX. And that certainly strengthens Nolan's relationship with the IMAX brand, a relationship that benefits both parties, as this ups the prestige of IMAX overall and might entice other filmmakers to prioritize that format. Get it so that you have to see their movie in IMAX too. I think that kind of prestige has been a big part of Oppenheimer's success. Nolan hasn't revealed what his next project will be, but he's been pretty vocal that he would like it to be Bond. Now, he's also said, as some of you have pointed out, that he would want full creative control, and that ain't never going to happen, because this is Barbara Broccoli's only thing. It's all Barbara Broccoli does, and Michael G. Wilson. She is Ms. Bond. So she's not going to hand over full creative control to Nolan. But maybe he'd be happy with the most creative control that a director has ever gotten to date. And I think they're going to get along, because clearly for the last few movies, Barbara Broccoli has told her filmmakers to just copy Christopher Nolan. Cillian Murphy is only signed for another small film, but he was not a big name prior to this. And with the current actors strike, his team might just wait for his Best Actor noms to come along for him to get his next project, just to strengthen his situation. And if he wins Best Actor, he'll be able to get multiple leading man roles in top prestige studio films. Especially with the right director, a Nolan-esque director, I think he would be quite in demand. I think a lot of people who like that type of movie have really identified with his performance, as you can see from all the memes and stuff and GIFs online. So I think there's definitely something there. I didn't even like Oppenheimer, as you know, but as a studio suit, I'd be ready to sign up for Cillian Murphy's dance card as soon as that SAG strike ends. Oh boy, I'd be like, dance with me, Cillian. I have the perfect partner for you. Denis Villeneuve, perhaps? Something like that. And of course, he certainly has his fans thanks to his long-running role on Peaky Blinders, but he might finally be able to level up to carrying a film to at least a degree. He could be like a new Mark Ruffalo, right? Getting in films like Spotlight and things like that, where you're like, maybe he can't carry a film all by himself, but if I add him to maybe one or two other actors, like say Zodiac, which I just rewatched the other day. It was a great rewatch. Made me miss Mindhunter, that show. It made me miss that a lot. But anyway, I think that's, maybe the new Mark Ruffalo. And Mark Ruffalo's like, man, come on, I'm barely holding on myself. It's tough out there. Mark Ruffalo. Go make friends with Christopher Nolan. All right, so anyway, also Robert Downey Jr. Who else could benefit from Oppenheimer? What about RDJ, who's surely hoping the buzz about him being a frontrunner for Best Supporting Actor comes true. Downey's been burned before, and he's going up against Ken, so that's going to be tough. But, Robert Downey Jr. has certainly been working hard to keep himself busy post-Marvel. But none of it's worked out. But upcoming, he has that quirky spy show for HBO, which I actually think looks excellent. And he's supposed to be doing another Sherlock Holmes. Maybe that'll materialize. And he is signed up for the upcoming Adam McKay and Shane Black movies. That's excellent. That's very good for him. Adam McKay, I think especially. And then Shane Black works very well with Robert Downey Jr. Shane Black helped Robert Downey Jr. get Iron Man, thanks to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. But it's no secret that Robert Downey Jr.'s career has struggled post-MCU, and he really needs Oppenheimer to give him some momentum as a serious actor again. I'd say Robert Downey Jr. is a bit like Ben Affleck in that they're both trying to regain the prestige of their careers before they joined comic book franchises. Although, it's interesting, I think Ben Affleck was in a little bit of a better space prestige-wise, although, of course, Robert Downey Jr. had a better comic book run. They both made insane amounts of money, particularly Robert Downey Jr. off of Marvel for their comic book runs. So again, don't feel bad for them. But it'll be interesting to see if they can rehabilitate their careers and go back to what they were. They got the comic book movies to want to hire them in the first place. Meanwhile, Mark Ruffalo doesn't have any money either. I don't know why I'm picking on Mark Ruffalo today. Sorry, Mark. All right, so as for the movies trying to survive Barbenheimer, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is holding on okay and should be able to cross the century mark in the next few weeks thanks to not only solid weekend performances, but it's doing pretty well during the week as well because, of course, school is out and people are checking it out during the week. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons couldn't pass the century mark, so that would be very nice for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Again, the strong audience scores will certainly help, but it really needs to perform on digital and then on Paramount Plus down the line, and ideally get nominated for Best Animated Feature to make sure that that greenlit sequel and the 2-season animated series that's supposed to bridge the two films actually happen. You know, they announce all this stuff all the time, right when a movie's about to come out to try and get you excited and feel the train is leaving the station. You better get on. But then also, if the box office doesn't materialize, we've seen those plans mysteriously fade away. But if they do move forward with more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, let's hope it moves faster than the other Seth Rogen-produced project, Invincible. Come on, season 2! And being released in 2 halves? What kind of garbage is this? And then the Meg 2, as some of you pointed out last week, it's doing very well overseas. In fact, so well that it might break even theatrically. Remember, when all is said and done, a studio gets about 50% of the box office. That would make it all gravy, though, on digital and then down the line on Max, when it plays on the Max streaming service. Now, is this good enough for the Meg 3? You know, maybe it is. Clearly, Jason Statham has no illusions about what his career really is. He's like, I get paid a decent amount of money to make crap. You know, hey, he's a draw overseas. He's earning that paycheck. So maybe they will make the Meg 3. And you know what? Maybe people actually might see The Expendables 4 with him and Megan Fox. Now I'm thinking people might actually watch that. The Last Voyage of the Demeter sure could have used Jason Statham. Wow, it opened under 10 million. He wouldn't have fit in the movie at all, but who cares? He would have brought in people to see it. This is devastating for a film from a major studio, Universal in this case, and when horror is doing pretty well these days. But nobody wanted to see this movie. Speaking of Universal, this is their first recent B movie that has not connected in theaters at all. But that doesn't mean it won't connect down the line on digital. Are you waiting for digital? Is this just a pure digital release in your opinion? It will definitely hit in 17 days. As for the rest of the top 10, the bleeding seems to have slowed, I wouldn't say stopped, but slowed on Haunted Mansion, which fell just under 40% in its third weekend. But it's still an incredibly embarrassing performance for Disney and hurts rather than helps the fan-favorite Haunted Mansion brand. So many problems, not just releasing the film, a Halloween film in the middle of July, but that certainly didn't help. But wow, just a disaster across the board. So bad that Justin Simeon got pulled off Lando and had to find out via Instagram. Whew! And while Indiana Jones has made more than Mission Impossible domestic, Tom Cruise is himself something of an international star, and Mission Impossible is much further ahead overall. Now, while they won't be making any more Indiana Jones movies for quite some time, never say never in Hollywood, they will make Indiana Jones again someday. Although I would not mind one coming up with bringing back Ke Huy Quan, a short round. Let's just do it. Let's do it. Let's just pretend this one didn't happen. But how the heck is Paramount going to pitch the new Tom Cruise movie, the next Mission Impossible, that's already been filmed? That's definitely coming out next summer. Now, some of you have suggested maybe they should take part 2 off of the title, right? So that you feel like you don't have to have seen the first movie to see this new one. But the only problem is that it's very much a part 2, and you won't be able to follow the new movie if you haven't seen part 1. So Tom Cruise's only hope is that this thing blows up on digital and streaming. And it was so good. I hope that you do catch it down the line. It was a great movie. I really think that the big problem here was Barbenheimer. It was a great film, although the opening even wasn't that great. It was rough. It was rough. What a mess. That really is shocking. Over on streaming, starting with Nielsen for the second week of July, Suits has not slowed down either. Suits is like the Barbenheimer of streaming right now, as viewers make their way through all 9 seasons, baby, on Netflix and Peacock. They're watching it all, and they're not skimming, apparently. People have just committed to watching all 9 seasons of Suits. I bet, at this rate, they're going to make season 10. As soon as the writers and the actors strike ends, I bet you somebody greenlights season 10. Certainly Peacock. What does Peacock have over there? Give himself Suits season 10 for Pete's sake, or Peacock's sake. Then, wow, let's talk about Bluey, an acquired show, number 2 on the overall chart. Bluey will not be ignored. I've seen a number of you say in the comments over the past year or so, when is she going to talk about Bluey? Look how well it's doing. Well, there you go. Kudos to Bluey. And the babysitting for kids on Disney Plus, where, The Simpsons, though, is never on here. So I guess it's not babysitting quite to the same degree. And Netflix's The Outlaws movie went up from its debut last week, actually getting close to 1,000, which is very impressive for an Adam Devine movie. And I really like Adam Devine, but I have no illusions about his career either. Although maybe it's going up. Maybe Adam Sandler has found his true predecessor, Adam Devine, at least on Netflix. And I actually got to tell you, I think that tracks. It was an okay movie. I watched it. All right, over on the originals chart, sure enough, there's Secret Invasion, almost out of the top 10, with still 2 episodes to go. More embarrassment for Disney. And while The Bear has fallen out of the overall top 10, it's still solid here on the OG chart. And remember, we're keeping an eye on The Bear because Hulu released it as a binge watch rather than week to week. And it's still doing well. That turned out not to torpedo the show. As for movies, another new movie for Netflix, Bird Box Barcelona, only did okay. It's certainly not anything like the first Bird Box, which Sandra Bullock should feel good about because she's like, it wasn't Bird Box that got people to watch. It was me. All right, and the latest Transformers is only doing okay on Paramount+. But hey, also this is interesting, Moana is on this chart, but Encanto has fallen off. What the heck? It's like a sign of the apocalypse that Moana and Encanto aren't both on here. Although maybe it'll come back next week. I'm still waiting to see if The Little Mermaid can join or replace one of these movies when it hits Disney Plus very soon, actually, the beginning of September as well. Over on Netflix, Jackie Chan and John Cena still have the #1 movie, while Ellie Kemper's new rom-com rose to #2 in its second week. New movies, River Wild, which is inspired by the 90s movie with Meryl Streep and David Strathairn, but this one has teen heartthrobs Adrian Brody and Leighton Meister as replacements. But anyway, and the Jake Paul documentary, well, they both failed to impress. Then with shows, Heartstopper Season 2 didn't debut at #1, but #2 is pretty darn good. And let's see what happens next week when it has a full week of viewership. And then also, I would like to see Heartstopper Season 1 get pulled in the top 10, which is important for shows when it comes to longevity. It hasn't happened yet, but again, maybe we'll see it happen next week. Then on iTunes, wait a minute, did it ever hit theaters, or did this become a direct-to-video release? This is the new horror movie with Lizzie Kaplan and Homelander. Why doesn't Anthony Starr get more work outside of The Boys? Thankfully, this is #2. And he's in The Covenant, too, which is still in the top 10. So I hope his agent is pointing this out to people. Spider-Verse is still doing very well on digital, including a 2-pack, which is doing big business, as is The Little Mermaid and Super Mario Brothers. But it looks like The Flash is starting to fade. Then, speaking of DC, the brand has a huge test coming up this weekend as they try to launch Blue Beetle. Will it crater like The Flash? Did James Gunn truly kill the remaining DC movies by saying he was going to, well, he's doing a soft reboot. He has promised that Blue Beetle is actually the first member of the new world that he's building. But is Blue Beetle really? Is he really? I think the box office will be what ultimately decides. And are you planning to see Blue Beetle in theaters this weekend? If you're a DC fan, and I wonder how many of those are left at this point, but if you're a hardcore DC fan, you gotta show up. This is super, super important. The review embargo lifts Wednesday afternoon. Also this weekend at theaters, Universal has Strays, which might make the Last Voyage of the Demeter's box office look pretty darn good. I think Universal was doing really well with their B-movie pipeline, but might have hit a little bit of blockage. These seem like C-level movies, quite frankly. But digital, this is a big week. Elemental becomes available, not on Disney Plus, but for purchase or very high-priced rental wherever digital movies are sold. And I'm not waiting for Disney Plus. I'm picking up Elemental. I can't wait to see it again. But then also, No Hard Feelings. Now, this is a Sony movie, so that means in a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so, it will eventually get to Netflix. But I think this is going to do very well, even on digital. In fact, I'm planning to watch it, and I'm planning to watch it with you, as this will be August's BTT Movie Club watch-along, happening this Friday. Sundays have not been good for watch-along, so I'm moving them to Fridays. So it's this Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, I've not seen this movie, and it's not only supposed to be very funny, but quite shocking, so it should make for a really good watch-along. You need your own copy of the film to participate and be a movie club member, so level up or join today. It's going to be real fun. I can't wait. As for streaming movies, Netflix has a new animated The Monkey King on Friday. Then with shows, there's season 4 of Solar Opposites dropping on Hulu tomorrow. They're like, why don't we try dropping a show on Monday? Let's try it. Why not? It is season 4, so it has viewers. While Netflix brings back the Upshaws, also multiple seasons in, on Thursday, and Peacock has season 2 of Killing It. And on Friday, Prime Video has something called Harlan Coben's Shelter. I've never heard of Harlan Coben, but apparently he's a very prolific author who specializes in thrillers and has an audience. And this show is based on the first young adult novel he ever wrote. So you might want to check that out. So that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And do you think Blue Beetle can face off against Barbenheimer? It will be Barbenheimer many weeks in. So let's see. Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.